Alright, so today I want to answer one of the most common questions that I've been asked in the live streams and in the comments section under a lot of my videos. And a lot of people, they'll list all the different snakes and all the different genes that they're working with, and they'll say, hey Chris, what should I breed with my snakes to make some really amazing combinations? And of course, usually what I answer with is I pretty much look at some of my favorite combinations. For example, the bamboo is really awesome. This is Bobby, my bamboo ball python around my neck. I would highly recommend getting into the bamboo project because it's been really good for me. I really love the standalone gene, the straight bamboos, and there's about 200 genes in ball pythons in a lot of different combinations. There's a lot of stuff you can get into, as far as combinations. I would recommend doing some of my favorites, like the banana enchi works pretty well with almost any other gene, and another one that I really like is the leopard spot nose. Really amazing combination. But when it really comes down to it, there's a lot to choose from, and you want to do a little bit more research as far as picking the genes and the projects that you actually get into. And one of the things you really want to avoid, for example, if you decided to get into bamboos and start producing a whole bunch of bamboos, one of the things you really want to avoid is showing up to your first reptile show with a whole table of bamboos only to find out that there's 10 other tables full of bamboo ball pythons, and you have a lot of competition at the reptile show and not a lot of diversity. And when I actually brought bamboos to my reptile show, I was pretty much the very first one. A lot of people have never seen bamboos, and that's one of the reasons I got into the project. So I would highly recommend, first thing, to go to some of your local reptile shows and look around to see what they have and what people are producing. And there's another trick you can do if you don't go to the reptile show. So say, for example, the next reptile show is not for a couple of months, and you really want to buy something today to work on. There's a few neat little tricks I want to show you today as far as kind of seeing what's in your local market that you can invest in a project where you don't really bump up against the competition. And that's what I want to show you in this video. I want to jump over to the internet and I want to show you some more strategies as far as picking different genes into your ball python breeding project. Alright, so I want to jump over here on Morphmarket.com, and I want to show you one way that you can evaluate your competition when you're selling ball pythons at the reptile show. And technically, if everyone has different snakes and different combinations of genes, you really have no competition when you go to the reptile show. The only reason there's competition is because you have something that's exactly the same as the person next to you. As a matter of fact, at the last couple of reptile shows, they put me side by side with other ball python tables, and it was almost like a continuous display from my table all the way to their table. We were right next to each other, and it was pretty amazing. We didn't have anything that overlapped in our collection. I had a whole bunch of bamboos, and he had some like ultramels and pieds and stuff like that. As a matter of fact, we were like looking at each other's table. I was thinking, hey, I should pick up an ultramel, and he was looking over at my table thinking, hey, I should pick up a bamboo. So sometimes that works, but a lot of times you really want to think about what other people are selling at the shows, and then pick your genes that are completely opposite of everyone else, and maybe bring a new gene into your reptile show. For example, here at my shows, there's almost nobody selling puzzles, which is kind of interesting. You can actually get into the puzzle project and you can kind of dominate the local market. Although at other reptile shows and in other areas, there may be a lot of puzzles in your local areas. I've actually seen some comments under my YouTube videos, and they're like, hey, I go to the show and everybody has puzzles. It's kind of amazing what the difference is from one show to another. So you really want to check what's going on in your local area. And one of the ways to actually do that, you can actually come over here on Morphmarket.com and really get a feel for what people are producing in your local area. It's kind of an interesting way to research a new gene and find a gene that you really are interested in that nobody else in your local area is working with. So if you actually come over here to Morphmarket.com, this is like the home page that you land on, and it's pretty amazing. They've really expanded Morphmarket since I started on here. When I first started, they only had a few categories here. Look at all the different categories. They have ball pythons, boa constrictors, leopard geckos. As a matter of fact, when I first started, I think there was only like 4 categories, maybe 5 when I first started about five years ago. And look at all these other ones. I was pretty amazed. I actually haven't been over here on the homepage looking at these categories. It looks like they added invertebrates and amphibians, which is kind of cool, which is, as a matter of fact, in the vertebrates, they have a bunch of tarantulas, which is pretty awesome. And a lot of tree frogs in the amphibians. It's pretty amazing how they keep expanding Morphmarket over here. So essentially what you want to do is you want to come over here, and for ball pythons, you want to click on the ball python tab right here. And that'll bring you over to this page right here. And this is pretty amazing. If you haven't seen this before, essentially what this is, these are all the different genes in ball pythons. These are all the individual single genes. Pretty amazing how many genes are in ball pythons. You have all these to choose from. Some of them are recessive, some are codominant, some are dominant, and it pretty much has all of them coded and all the numbers as far as the numbers over here on Morphmarket and how popular they are. Pretty amazing. What you can actually do is you can actually click on, if you come up here to ball pythons and click on the stores tab, it'll bring you over to a stores page over here, and it'll give you all the different stores. Believe it or not, Morphmarket has 1,817 stores. People selling ball pythons over here on Morphmarket. Pretty amazing. And it lists all the stores. You can actually kind of scroll through them, or you can search for them. As a matter of fact, my store's over here, but you definitely have to search through all these different stores to find it. So what you can actually do is come over to click the stores, and then under stores, what you can actually do is click on the map version of the stores. As a matter of fact, you can actually, right here is the link right here. So you can actually, it says view by morph map, and you want to click on this link right here. And this link will actually bring you over to the morph map. And essentially what this is a map of all the different stores that are selling ball pythons over on Morphmarket. And look at how many stores are in the United States and in Canada. It's pretty amazing how many stores there are. And it's kind of coded here. So if you actually have a store in red, that's a store that has 50 or more snakes listed over on Morphmarket. And the cool thing about this is it's completely zoomable. You can actually zoom in on the map. I actually pulled in a zoomed up map here of Colorado. Take a look at this. This is kind of interesting. So this is Colorado, and these are all the different stores, the places that are selling ball pythons here in Colorado. And one of the things you can actually do is you can look at what people are actually producing in your local area, so you can see what genes people are working with and try to avoid those genes. Sometimes you can actually kind of jump in. I'd say with some of the more popular ones like the pieds and the clowns, I'd say it doesn't really matter. Some of the like the normals doesn't really matter. You know, some of your low end stuff, but I'd say if you're getting into kind of the medium high end stuff, you may want to avoid a lot of competition. So the cool thing about this map is you can actually click on all the individual stores. For example, you can actually click right here on my store. This is Chris Hardwick Reptiles, and you can actually click on this link. It'll bring you over to Morphmarket, and you'll see what snakes I have for sale. I actually pulled up this one down here. This one's actually in blue, 6 to 19 ads on this store right here. So we'll use this one as an example. For example, I don't know anything about this store, what they sell or anything. This is a store in my local area, and I assume it could be a competitor of mine selling ball pythons. They're over here on Morphmarket in my local area. So what you can actually do is you can click on the store. This is VMS Professional Herpetoculture. You can actually click on their link and come over to their Morphmarket store over here and see all about them, what they're actually selling. As a matter of fact, if you scroll down here, this is kind of interesting. I kind of previewed this store. This one actually is listing 97 corn snakes, 30 king snakes, 22 other boas, 14 ball pythons, and 7 milk snakes. It looks like they're a pretty diverse operation, which is pretty interesting. And another trick you can actually do is you can actually come down way on the bottom here, and it says show all 14 ball pythons from VMS Herps. So you can actually click on that, come over here, it'll bring you to this other page. So these are the ball pythons that they've sold, and what you can actually do is come in here on the filter and filter by that particular store, and you want to filter instead of the availability for sale, you want to scroll down to all that they've sold in the whole history of Morphmarket over here on Morphmarket. When you actually click the go button, it brings you over here. They've actually sold 113 15 ball pythons over here, or have listed them over here on Morphmarket. So it kind of gives you an idea as far as what genes they're working with. And one of the things you have to keep in mind too, I was thinking about this as far as, you know, kind of evaluating the competition. One of the things you really want to think about is, are they actually producing these snakes, or are they flipping these snakes? Are they actually buying them and selling them? So it's a little bit different if someone's constantly buying and selling, kind of like a snake wholesaler. It'd be a little bit different. But assuming that these sellers are producing their own ball pythons, you can kind of get a feel for what they're producing. So for example, take a look at this. They actually have blue-eyed leucistics. Look at all the blue-eyed leucistics and the ivories, which is the super yellow belly. And I actually looked at the, pretty much a lot of things they're actually selling. A lot of blue-eyed leucistics, and a lot of white snakes over here that they actually have. And they have some bananas and some Mojaves. So I'd say based on this, if they're actually selling at the local reptile shows, which is another thing, are they selling just online or are they selling on the shows? I would say you might not want to produce a lot of blue-eyed leucistics or ivories, because these people are actually sorted by, I came over here and actually sorted by the most expensive. You can actually do that. Sort by most expensive, and it'll tell you exactly what they're selling. And look at all the white snakes that they're selling over here in Colorado, a local competitor. It's pretty amazing. And you can kind of get an idea as far as what people are doing. I don't produce that many white snakes, and after seeing this, I'm thinking, well, maybe I shouldn't produce white snakes. Maybe I should stick with more of my bamboos as far as breeding. So take a look at this. You can actually do the same thing with other species of snakes. So not only with ball pythons, you can actually click up here where it says, I actually clicked on boa constrictors. You can scroll down, you can choose ball pythons, king snakes, milk snakes, leopard geckos, and you can actually get a view of what people are producing in your area. So if you actually click on boa constrictors, there's not that many people producing boa constrictors here in Colorado. So there's not a whole lot of competition. So for example, you can actually bring this one up, which has 20 to 49 hands. It is in the pink color here, and you can click on Second City Constrictors, come over here, take a look at their store, and you can actually scroll down, and these guys, you can definitely tell they have 41 boa constrictors for sale. Looks like these guys are pretty specialized into boa constrictors. So, you know, for me, for a ball python guy, these guys are not anywhere near competing with what I'm selling at my local reptile show. So sometimes you can actually just kind of scroll through and say, all right, these guys are selling boas. I don't even have to worry about going through and seeing what they have. So some of it is really species specific. So you can actually come over here, and it's kind of interesting to see what they're selling at the shows. As a matter of fact, I'm kind of interested in buying a boa. This one's pretty close. I can almost drive over and buy it. I actually pulled up all the boas that they have ever sold over here on Morphmarket. They actually have 166 boas, and they go all the way up to $2,500. I was actually looking at some of these boas. These are, I have no clue about anything about boas, about the genes or anything. I thought this one was kind of interesting. This one with the line right down the top of the back. Pretty crazy. One of these days I'll actually get a boa constrictor, but maybe not today. I think I have to learn a little bit more about boas before I jump into something like this. But it's kind of interesting. You actually go over here and see all this. Another one I actually pulled up right here at the end. The last one I want to show you. This is kind of interesting. I actually went over here and scrolled down to Western Hognose, and take a look at Colorado, what's available as far as breeders for Western Hognose. So sometimes you can actually look at these maps and kind of scroll down through all these, and you're like, all right, if I live in California, over here down in, you know, San Diego, maybe I don't want to breed Western Hognoses, but here in Colorado, it looks like there's zero competition for breeding Western Hognoses. As a matter of fact, I've been to a lot of reptile shows, and there's been quite a few people coming up to my table, and they're like, hey, is anybody in Colorado selling a Western Hognose? And a lot of people have been asking for them. So maybe if you're in Colorado, or maybe if you actually look at the map, you can actually be in, for example, Nebraska or Iowa, or maybe South Dakota or Montana. It looks like there's this big empty spot where people are not really breeding Western Hognoses. Maybe a good project to invest in. All right, so it is time for the question of the day. And Anna Marie asks, do you use any kind of record-keeping software for your ball pythons? And that is a very good question. So I've actually seen quite a few software packages that are really high-tech, really advanced. Some of them, you actually put a barcode on the front of your tubs and you scan it with your phone every time you do something with that snake. Let me tell you, those are pretty high-tech. But kind of the thing that always is in the back of my mind, that if the system crashes, I could potentially lose all the information about all my snakes, which would be really devastating. So essentially the only software that I use right now, I actually use Microsoft Excel, and the only thing I track in Excel is the breeding of my ball pythons, the pairing of the males and the females, when I start the pairing and the whole pairing schedule, and the offspring results as far as the eggs and the slugs and everything like that. And that's pretty much the only thing I track in software. I've actually gone to a feeding card method. I actually printed out the feeding cards on the front of every tub, and that's pretty awesome. I have the full 12 months of feeding, so every week I have an opportunity to actually, I think there's 3 check boxes for every week. Usually you don't feed a ball python more than 3 times in a week. I have them all crammed in on one card, so I can walk up to a tub and see the whole last 12 months of feeding just at a glance for any ball python, which is pretty awesome. And then the only other thing I really print out is the identification of the snakes. I just use a label maker and print it out on the front of every tub, so someone can walk up, they can see the exact snake, the male, if it's a male or a female, the name of the snake, and all the genes that are in that particular snake, and the feeding just by looking at the tub itself. I try not to put too much stuff in any kind of software where I could potentially lose it. So that is pretty much it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.